Let me make this a little more cozy and a little less, titties. I feel like I might need to zoom out just a hair. Hopefully that's okay. Please ignore the mess on my bed. I feel like you're not straight. I don't have any tea, but I do have water. It's the 4th video and I don't even have a proper intro. Hi! I know this is a bit of a different setup and a different kind of video for what I've shown so far on my channel, but I've tried filming this video like 3 separate times and every other time it's just kind of been a mess. I either didn't know exactly what to say or I ended up crying at the end of filming. But we're here now, time to address the big elephant in the room, COVID-19. And I'm gonna try and do this quickly because I have class in 20 minutes and I still haven't done the reading for that class. Are we surprised? So, where to begin? Actually, I know exactly where to begin. If you, like me, have been stuck in this quarantine for a whole year and you've been following the rules, you've been following CDC protocol, you've been wearing your masks outside, sanitizing and washing your hands every time you can, making sure your hands are also lotioned because the amount of times you wash your hands will dry them out. I can attest to that. You've been doing your best to keep yourself, your roommates, your friends, your partner, your family, everyone around you safe. I feel like we need that. The people who are being safe aren't usually the ones talked about in the news or like really at all. We're always trying to talk to the people who don't follow protocol. And you know, it's a little disheartening to hear about every single influencer who went out and partied without posting on social media because they didn't want to get caught, or even seeing people outside without a mask on and they're surrounded by like 10 other people and they're not eating, they're just sitting around doing nothing. I feel like that's why it was hard for me to make this video, because my brain was so focused on the negative and on top of everything that has been awakened in society, rancid capitalism and systematic racism that destroys us all. It's a lot to think about and it's a lot to carry on your brain everywhere. So I thought, why not direct my focus on the growth that I've seen, not just in myself, mostly about myself because this is my channel and I want to document where I am now because I'm proud of it, but also kind of talk about where we are now as a society. We live in a society. Fun fact, I walked out of the Joker. That's another story for later. Don't hate me. It wasn't because I hated it. So, in order to not make this completely all about me, I am going to try and make up some questions that I can answer as I go, and as a response, feel free to leave your own answers in the comments because I love growth. If that makes any sense, you know? Like, I'm 5'3.5". I'm not mad about being that short, but you know, it'd be nice to grow a little bit. I love seeing people evolve into the beings that they are, kind of see them on their journey up. And I never really felt that about myself until this year during quarantine. So this is kind of my rambling / reflection / hopefully questionnaire that hopefully y'all will be able to join me on. So first things first, where were you a year ago when quarantine started? I'm warning you now, there's probably gonna be a lot of off-topic rambles, but I swear I will get back to the point. I remember technically it's the last 2 days before quarantine and then the day of quarantine, but I'm gonna just say the last 3 days before the lockdown. March 10th was the day that we were all told that we had to be kicked off campus. March 11th was our last day on campus, our last day of in-person classes, our last day of seeing our friends, faculty, the sun, my college city. And March 12th was my first day of quarantine, and the day before I moved back into my parents' apartment. On the 10th, it was I'm actually really sad to say this, it was my last day of choir. And I say that because we didn't really have, oh god, I don't want to get emotional. Technically it's my last day of choir ever, because after that we never really had choir classes online, because you can't really have a physical class for singing online. It was more so just check-in days, and I haven't been in choir since for a multitude of reasons, but mainly I didn't really see myself trying to sing in a virtual choir. It seems selfish, but at the same time, like, being a musician, you can't really do that online. Sure, you can like record yourself multiple times and send that in, and then you have a sound engineer or a video editor or both to mix and render all the clips together to make a virtual choir, but that's not the same thing as being in the presence of other people and being able to sing with them and blend with them and make sure you're not singing louder than them because you know you're a loud ass and you stick out. It's not the same feeling. I couldn't do it after that spring semester. I couldn't bring myself to do it. Anyways. It was my last day of choir. We were supposed to have a concert that Saturday, actually. That never happened, obviously. And then while we were in session, I think it was the opera kids that were rehearsing at the same time and then had to be told that their opera was canceled. I can't remember which vocal jazz group it was, but one of the vocal jazz groups was rehearsing at the same time as us as well. And I think they just kind of were chilling in the room while they were being told that we were all gonna be gone. See, it's hard to make this uplifting because thinking about where I was a year ago, it hurts a lot. I just remember the pain and the anger and the sadness of not just me missing out on my concert, but of my friends in the opera program who were working on this show for a multitude of months and having that ripped away from them like it's nothing. The 11th was a bit of a blur, but I think I just remember the feeling of kind of dread that we were all not gonna be here for the last time. I remember there were people who were like, oh, it's just for 2 weeks. We'll be done. We'll be back in no time. You know? Oh, if only we knew. I don't think I was exhausted as I was in the following weeks to come, but definitely exhausted enough to not want to think about how this was potentially the last day of classes. And then the 12th of March. First day of quarantine. It's the end of the world as we know it. I'm finna die. Really set the mood for the rest of the year, huh? So that's where I was physically. Emotionally, I think I tried to be hopeful that it was all gonna work out, because that spring semester, I felt good about my mental health. I felt good about where I was, where I'd come from. The end of 2019 was especially rough for me, so I was kind of adamant on 2020 being my peak. Not my peak, but a peak in my mental health journey. So I think I tried to be hopeful, and it was definitely hard because of everyone around me feeling the dread. So many shows were canceled. I think I was still hopeful that my show was still gonna happen on Saturday. And then I got taken back to my parents' place. And I've been here ever since. So that's the end of that. Question 2. How was I in the first few months of quarantine? I'm just gonna briefly talk about maybe March to June-ish. Maybe end of May, early June. That picture perfect afternoon we share. A lot of crying, to say the least. A lot of crying. A lot of exhaustion. dread, emotional pain, a sliver of hope that was fading by the minute as we switched from in-person to online classes because Cal State Long Beach made that decision early. As much as I hate it, I'm kind of glad that Cal State Long Beach has been taking the initiative to call ahead. I think they announced spring was going to be all online pretty early on fall semester, rather than keep people's hopes up for nothing. Honestly, the more I talk, the more I just feel this like giant weight coming back on me. And now I realize why it was so hard for me to film all these videos. It was just so much to handle all at once. Childhood trauma coming back to haunt me, on top of online classes, on top of, at the time, my vocal performance degree, which was writing on my final jury. Spoiler alert, I switched out, but I think I'm gonna save that for another video. And it was a lot. Last week, either before or during finals, I just remember taking my stimulus check. This is a really bad idea. I remember just taking my stimulus check and spending it all in that week because I was so stressed about everything that I felt like I just needed retail therapy. I know I went overboard. I know I definitely went overboard. There's nothing I can add to that. I went overboard. I have no clean way to segue into the next question, so we're just gonna jump straight into it. How did I cope being inside all year? The short answer is I didn't, but it wasn't enough for me to actively go outside and seek out people to party with. But this video is not for them. The main two things that really pulled me through, at least slightly unscathed, was journaling and semi-routinely, not as much anymore, but at least during last year, seeing my friends. I just remember when Zoom was like still a thing. I'd gone on a couple calls with my studio at the time, and it was just nice to like see them, even if I was kind of the outsider looking in, or at least I felt like it. It still felt nice to be in the presence of people. Since then, keeping up with those Snapchat streaks. At this point, those have just felt like a chore, but at the very least, I can see people's faces. Sometimes I really learned the value of calling people. I never really was a big fan of texting in the first place, but I didn't realize how much it separated me from people until I made it a thing with my partner to call twice-ish a week. And thinking about it now, it's been good for my psyche to be able to talk to someone that isn't my immediate family. And then aside from him, I'll have friends who will call me because I forget to call people. I'm that friend. And I know I'm definitely not the norm for everyone, or at least people on social media. I know I've seen a lot of people who are like, I don't really have friends to call, or I use social media to cope, or I am alone and I don't really have someone to talk to. And it's that feeling of loneliness that has really kind of sunken in during all of quarantine, when you realize that you are that friend who forgets to call people and make them feel the same way that you do when they don't call you. It doesn't hurt to reach out to people. The worst thing they can do is ignore your call. I know that feels so empty-handed, but I'm being dead ass when I say if I didn't follow my partner on Instagram randomly, he wouldn't be my partner right now. Maybe you'll be as lucky as I am, and after talking to someone you haven't in a while, you'll also end up in a relationship. Or, personally, possibly the better alternative, you'll have at least a friend that you can talk to from time to time that you feel comfortable reaching out to because you took that initiative. And then the other thing, journaling. Now, for me, it was both journaling in the normal sense of the word, where I kind of just throw all of my rambles on a page, and then also kind of getting into bullet journaling a lot more. I'm not going to turn this page into a bullet journal page. I tried making an Instagram for that, and I am not consistent with it at all. So I've just kind of kept my creativity to myself. because I don't want to monetize everything. However, the feeling of being inspired by other creatives and expressing myself in that creativity while also figuring out a system that can keep me organized so I'm not completely scatterbrained, it's just a beautiful balance that I found really works for me. And there are weeks that I have nothing to do when I should be doing stuff, but I don't, and I am able to just take a page and go crazy, go stupid. And then there are other weeks, like now during school, where I just need to keep the design simple enough for me to be motivated to open it, but organized enough for me to be able to write important dates and tasks and other stuff. Is that what bullet journaling is? I found it to be a really good creative outlet for me because I had been missing that since I wasn't doing choir anymore and since I'm no longer doing a vocal degree. And I guess the final question, because I'm looking at my clock and it's 7 minutes to class. How am I now? Honestly, I just got out of a 2-week depressive period, so not that great. But I'm a lot better than I was at the beginning of quarantine. I can at least say that, or at least convince myself to believe that, because during that entire 2 weeks, I was doing nothing but staying up till 3 a.m. playing Bloons Tower Defense 6 and ignoring all of my responsibilities. Which is why this video is formatted this way. But at the same time, I think where I am now, I hate that I have to ignore everything that's going on just so I can focus on myself and not get angry at everything that's happening. Like, I haven't even begun to dive into the Asian hate crimes that have been happening across the country. Because, 1, I don't want to. 2, I don't have enough knowledge to. And 3, I don't really have a way to address it that would be beneficial to the cause other than just talking about it. I have the privilege to be able to turn off the news and just focus on my studies. And at the same time, I have the privilege to be able to uplift other creators and other sources that are talking about all these situations. Because I know I'm definitely not knowledgeable in all of them, but at the very least, I want to be able to spread the knowledge of actual smart people so that you and I and everyone can be a little more informed. But closing that tangent, I mean, I'm just angry and sad and annoyed at the state of our world, but at the same time, I think I'm in a better place mentally. I will say I'm a little less hopeful than I was at the beginning of quarantine, and maybe a little more realistic, which in turn is making my psyche fail a little bit, but there's still hope that it'll all get better. We have a vaccine! We have multiple vaccines! Even with the anti-vaxxers that won't get the vaccine, there's still a vaccine, which means there's hope. I know there's a lot that I haven't touched on in terms of this quarantine. There's so much that happened this past year that I could honestly go on about for ever. Half of it would probably be nonsense that I have to edit out, and the other half would probably just be me being dumb. But this is where I'm closing the chapter for now. We made it! Also, at the time of me filming this, it has been a whole year since Ryujin from ITZY has blessed us all with her wannabe shoulder dance, and I tried to make a reel documenting that, and I have failed miserably, which probably explains why my brain is so tired. And I don't know if I made any sense in this video, but hopefully you got something out of it. I will definitely put the questions in the description in case you do want to answer it. If not in the comments, then in your own time, by yourself, to reflect on your journey during the pandemic. Because I know at a glance, looking back on everything, it feels really, 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 really bleak, but being able to kind of reflect on how you've been and the knowledge you gained and all of the good things that may have happened, even if it was just 3 things that happened this past year. Those are still 3 good things. And in these unprecedented times, we need to hold on to those good moments, because that is really what makes life worth living. Even when we're stuck inside for who knows how long. People are being dumb, but I'm not gonna get into that because literally every other YouTuber has already delved into that. Thank you so much if you made it to the end of this video. If you want to see more of my rambling, feel free to give a like. I know I definitely went on like 50 different tangents. I tend to do that when I'm talking, but if you enjoy that, please let me know. Again, I'm 4 videos in and I still don't know what I want to do with this channel. There's a lot of stuff that I want to do, but I don't know exactly what to execute with. So if you want to see more videos like this, or maybe another fashion video, or week in my life, I definitely have one of those planned, or, you know, whatever you want to see. Leave it in the doobly-doo. If you want to see more from me, be sure to subscribe and hit that bell. And stay safe. Have a good rest of the month. Have a good rest of the year. Have a wonderful morning, evening, night, afternoon. Drink water. Get rest. You're doing great. Bye. Cue the outro.